Good morning, friends. My name is Catherine, and I'm the Community Outreach Coordinator for PATH Employment Services. Thank you for joining us today for our Let's Talk Career series. Just to give you a little bit of insight about the series, it's to have a conversation about for the folks that are thinking about getting into certain careers or thinking of changing their careers. And we have guests on that each share their unique career journey. So sharing their challenges, accomplishments, and maybe some tips and tricks on how you would get into certain areas in the workforce. So today, I'm very thrilled to have our guest, Patrica Wright, Pat. Thank you, Pat, for joining me today in this conversation. I'm really happy to have you here.
Thank you, Catherine. Thank you.
How are you today?
Feeling wonderful. As long as the sun is shining outside, it just gives my body a lift.
Yeah. I did, I was trying to remember before we went on here today how long we've known each other. And I did the math, and it's been 7 years since we've known each other.
Really?
Yeah. It was the end of, I think it was the end of 2014 when I did the NLI interview with you. Yeah. Yep. It's been 7 years.
Wonderful.
Yeah. It's been quite the journey.
It's been a journey, but you know, you can only go one step at a time.
That's right.
Keep on going.
Yeah, that's what we do, right?
We do one step, then the next one, then the next one. It's like when they say how you eat an elephant, one bite at a time. You get it done.
So I usually start out the conversation just to ask each of our guests about their first job, what their first job was, just to kind of start the conversation around work and career. And
well, my first job, that's a long time ago.
Not very long.
Both of my parents are teachers.
Mm-hmm.
And so I grew up in that kind of environment where books and education was always important for us. And in Jamaica, we had teachers unions, but my father was the principal.
Uh-huh.
So he could hire. He had a responsibility to hire. And some of his teachers used to go on what they called long-term leave.
Okay.
And in a long-term leave, they had to take it in conjunction with a holiday like Christmas break, so they took it in conjunction with their summer break. So they would go off for summer break, but they would take their leave starting in June and finishing at the end of September.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it had the summer in between. And because my father was in an elementary school, and we did get the summer break as well, but who would hire me for that period to teach the June classes and the September classes. And at that time, I was going to university, and university was finished early and started late. So it made a nice fit. So I really started teaching, but that was because I got a little heads up from family connections.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that for many people, they may not necessarily have those family connections. So if I were to give advice to anybody in trying to get their first job, it's not just necessarily family connections.
Mm-hmm.
You have friends.
Yep.
Friends have friends.
Mm-hmm.
You look at who is in my network and can I ask them? Because especially like I was about 17 or 18.
Mm-hmm.
I was quite young, but it started me on a career path. So I was able to do that. So people use networks. And now that we are having more electronic network, and those times you had, I'm in my 70s now, so This is a long time ago when we didn't have the kind of networking system that, but we can still use our networks, we can still use our neighborhoods, we can still use our those who we see from day to day and ask. Never be afraid to ask. Sometimes it's hard, but never be afraid to ask.
Yep, that's something I've learned from you. The worst thing they can say is no, so.
The worst thing say is no. And then when they say no, you say, okay, thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for your help. And you move on and ask the next one.
Yeah. So when did you come to Canada from Jamaica?
I came to Canada, oh gosh, Catherine, that's a long time ago. I came to Canada in 1966.
Okay.
Yeah.
And did you start teaching right away when you came, or did you get into a different role?
No, I didn't. When I went to university, I did sciences.
Okay.
Sciences. I was a lousy speller. You see, I'm so glad that computers nowadays have spelling. Because I was terrible. So I kind of gravitated towards the sciences.
Okay.
And I graduated in chemistry and biology. Those are my two top subjects. And I actually got my first, let me call it, paid employment, for want of a better. Well, the teaching was paid too, but it was very minuscule. It was a teacher. It was very small. But in terms of paid employment, I got paid as a chemist.
Okay.
I worked in industrial chemistry, and again in those days, you really, as a female in the chemical field, you didn't see many women in chemistry. You didn't see many women in chemistry at all. And I graduated, oh gosh, 1965. And I got a scholarship and I went to Europe.
Okay.
And when I went into Europe, I was in Denmark, and I was in an area, and we were doing some really advanced type of chemistry biology, because I was kind of mixing those two together. And in that field we're trying to look at how to improve plants, how to improve wheat in particular.
Okay.
Talk about genetically modified wheat.
Interesting.
That's working in. And we used to use radiation on wheat kernels.
Oh, goodness.
Because the radiation could cause spontaneous mutations.
Okay.
And then we would plant those kernels and see what kind of plants we would get out of it. And whether I was at a wheat improvement station.
Did you improve the wheat?
Not sure, because my scholarship was only for a year.
Okay.
And when you're looking at plant improvement, it's more of a long-term thing. So I don't know if any of the irradiated wheat improved. But then, just at about that time, there was a call for immigrants to Canada. They were very short immigrants. See, times have changed.
Yeah.
Getting people to come over. And so I applied and I got through, and I came to Canada the following year. So I was there in 65. I came to Canada in 66.
Okay.
And when I came to Canada, my first job in Canada was doing pretty much the same thing. In Toronto, there's Wesley Hospital, and up floor in Toronto, University Toronto, we're doing cell research.
Oh,
And we're doing cell research, and we're working in making proteins.
okay. Hmm.
See, you didn't know all of this.
I didn't know this part of your story. No. So many stories you have.
And again, I was in chemistry. I tell you, my salary at the time, I was a researcher
Mhm.
with, and he first was from Germany. His name was Dieter, and I earned $4,800 a year.
Oh my goodness.
4,800
Wow.
a year. That was in 1966.
Wow.
What we did again, we used to use radiation,
Mhm.
and we use radioactive water,
Okay.
and it was made from a radioactive hydrogen, which we call tritium. Okay. I don't want to get too technical here, but what we would do is that we would use the radiated water
Mhm.
to label amino acids,
Mhm.
and then put them together to make proteins.
Oh, wow.
And so we could, so it's protein synthesis, it's all of
Mhm.
the genetic improvement, all of that way back when in the 60s, when
Wow.
it was really starting out. But that's the training in chemistry and in biology and putting them together. And at that same time, they offered training to become a teacher.
Mhm.
We're so short of teachers in Ontario, so short of teachers that they were saying, we would allow you to take your teaching certificate in summer school.
Wow. That's a pretty great offer.
It was a beautiful offer. So what would happen was, okay, remember, I'm earning 4,800.
Mhm.
Offer that said, if you can get a school to hire you, then you have to agree to come to summer school.
Okay.
And you do, by this time it's now 67, you do the first summer, the second summer, and if necessary, a third summer. But first, you must get a teaching contract.
Mhm.
And so you get the teaching contract, then you take your contract and your university degree to the College of Education, and you go into the college and you work for the summer. And normally, when you teach in a regular teaching college full-year program, you have to do practicums and you have to go to class. So they would send a group of us to spend a week doing teaching practicum, and we did that in rotation.
Okay.
And then they said that, well, okay, once you got into school, that would be the biggest practicum of all. So I found a school in Sarnia. I'm living in Toronto.
Okay.
I know nobody in Sarnia, but there was a school. It was St. Patrick's High School in Sarnia, Catholic's High School.
Mhm.
So I called them up. They're a small school, they're short of teachers. I took a train down from Toronto, got met by the superintendent, had an interview, got back on the train and went back to Toronto. And then
Wow.
and so you did that summer, and then you had to go back for the second summer before you got fully certified. But they paid you at the beginning
Mhm.
as if you were fully certified.
Oh,
Right?
wow. That's amazing.
So they were really short of teachers. They were doing
Yeah.
everything.
They're basically giving you the job.
So here's, okay, so, I'll never forget this. So the first year, okay, I'm working SANS doing biochemical research. That was 4,800. And just by starting a few months later, I started at 5,600. I thought
Oh, wow. That's not the way it is now.
and the next year when I finished the next one, I went to 6,400.
Oh, goodness.
So, I mean, Hey, I'm young, I'm in my 20s. I haven't, I'm not married. I don't have any children. I'm just me.
Yep.
And so 4,800 to 6,400 in about a year and a half. I thought that was a pretty good deal.
Yeah, you thought you were rich, didn't you?
And I was doing something that I had started doing when I was 18 old, and so it made perfect sense to me. And I've continued in that field ever since. Well, when I tell people now, okay, my first job in Canada, I made 4,800 a year. They look at me as if something's wrong in my head. But that was a long time ago.
Yeah.
And we were able to live. Cost of living was so much easier to manage than it is now.
Yeah.
And if I were to give advice to anybody seeking a job, know what you want, know what you want to do, but don't be afraid to step forward when opportunities present themselves. Sometimes I could have said, gee, I don't have a teaching certificate. Can I manage to do that? Should I? And you get all confused about what you can and cannot do.
Yeah.
Opportunity presents yourself. And to me, the opportunity to almost double my salary in such a short time made me say, hey, maybe I could do that.
Yeah.
And so I stepped forward. And I know we have a lot of people out there looking for jobs, trying to establish their careers. And I loved science. I loved working in science. And when I went to teach, guess what I taught? I taught chemistry, and I taught that. So I was able to do the things that I loved. And I was also able to do the things that came from my family environment. So I was able to bring those two together. So really, and I've said this to you before, we have to have the ability to reflect on what we know, what we think we can do, and take the steps to bring those together and do them. And most of all, the things that we like. Because I like teaching, and I still read scientific journals today. And now we're talking about COVID. I understand when they talk about the messenger RNA as we use, because I know and understand messenger RNA. Why? Because when I was at the hospital in Toronto and we were working on that protein research, we were using messenger RNA.
Okay. So it's helped with today.
I can read it and understand now some of the new technologies that have come. That's over my head. But I understand the basic principles and I understand how it works, and I can explain it to people who ask me.
That's good. Yeah, especially now, because there's a lot of misinformation and misunderstanding about what this is all about. So that's why you have all the conspiracy theories and it's just confusing for everyone.
All of that. So I was able to use prior knowledge. But and that brings me to the point that we need to keep on learning. And it's the whole notion. I'm sure you tell your clients that we have to be lifelong learners. Because everything's changing around us.
Yes.
Changing quickly. And we have to be able to meet the change. And so from working in teaching, that puts me into the community. And here I am. I'm still in the community.
I know. You're not really retired, Pat.
Yeah. My husband says, you are retired. That means you're tired again.
That makes more sense. Yeah. Knowing all the things that you do, you're continually out there doing things.
Yes, I am. And that's what I think makes life worthwhile for me. be out there doing stuff and just keep on going. And one of the things that I've learned is that we get energy from working with others. Everybody gives us positive energies. Some give us really negative energies. So we have to be able to shield ourselves from being drained, having an energy draining away. And so what I think we need to do is to find those little things. When we go out there, people are going to ask us for things, and we're going to be a giver, but we don't want to be drained. So we have to find those things that we like, that inspire us to keep us sustained and to keep us going, and not allow all our energy to be drained away.
Good advice. That's why I have you on here today.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So how long did your career in teaching go? Like, did you stay in that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I stayed in teaching from the 60s. Ooh.
Well, you're still teaching, so I know you are, because I sat in a class of yours.
Into the 90s, yeah, 30 years in education. And during that time, I had a very great honor to be elected into the Teachers Federation, the Secondary School Teachers Federation, as an officer. And so,
what does that mean?
It means I go into union leadership.
Okay. So
I left the classroom and I was a full-time teacher union leader.
Oh.
In of itself, it's so funny, and that was in the 90s. So now 30 years later, I'm in the union. I do collective bargaining. I looked after grievances. I looked after people's welfare. But if you're a teacher and you're looking after students' welfare, then you're looking after teachers' welfare. It's still about social service. Okay?
Yep.
And sometimes, because I'm a person of color, if they sent me as a representative of the Federation, if they sent me someplace to represent, when I would arrive, they would be still looking for the representative to come, because the myth of union leadership was white males being union leaders. And that was the time, and I'm sure that we're past that now. But it means working for people, but you're working with an idea in mind of bettering the situation, making it better. And if you're doing that with a genuine heart, it doesn't really make you tired. And then when I stepped away from that role, I still went into community. So it's doing the same kind of thing. And then when I went into the neighborhoods and started working with the Neighborhood Leadership Institute, that's all about helping people lift themselves up, get better at what they do. But you ask people to get an idea of what you want to do and become reflective about what you can do. And if you're truly reflective and you say, I would like to do this, but what do I need to get there? So not only should we have the desire to do such special things because we want to do them from our heart. And if we want to do them from our heart, we'll spend the time getting there. We need to know what gaps do we need to fill. And that's what that Leadership Institute was all about when we worked with the community, is to help them identify the gaps and fill them.
Yeah, that was a good experience for me.
And I'm hoping that one day we can build a similar program here in Hamilton, because even though the program is now shut down for a number of reasons, the need is still there. And again, if I'm looking to people, a lot of people have a social conscience. So if you're looking for a way to start a career, you could, remember I said earlier, we look about our networks.
Mhm.
Within our community, there's so many different networks that we could tap into. And if we really want to help build our community, we can find careers in building community.
Mhm.
And then you say, okay, I might need to go to college. I might need to take a course in communication. I might need to take a course in bookkeeping. I might need to take a course in whatever skill level you might need.
Mhm.
We don't have all the skills, but we
Yeah.
need to know the ones that we're missing so we can go find them.
Yeah.
And then use that as a stepping stone for careers. So I really believe that our careers come not necessarily by what we know at the moment,
Mhm.
but our careers come from what we want to do and us finding the resources to do it. If it even means tapping into some more additional learning, lifelong learning, and doing that.
Yeah, and it's changed now. Education and around careers and jobs, it's what was the word you said? It's pivoted.
We pivot because you know what? I read a management magazine,
Mhm.
McKinsey Quarterly,
Okay.
and it's talking about the careers of the future.
Mhm.
Now, when I went to my summer school teachers college,
Last year, right?
say to me, they did never say to me that you're going to be able to teach a class from your house.
Mhm. Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You had a class, and I remember some of my initial classes had 40 students in them,
Mhm.
right? And we used to talk about the danger of teaching science in a lab with 40 students. That was too many to have the safety issues addressed. And teacher unions said we need to have class size reduction. We need to get smaller and smaller classes. But it all was working on the paradigm that you had a classroom, you had students, and you had a teacher.
Mhm.
Now, we still have the same paradigm. We still have a classroom, and we still have students, and we still have teachers.
Mhm.
But where is the classroom? The classroom is in anybody's house where they are in Ontario.
Yep.
And
Exactly.
sitting in their home in front of a Zoom screen, and they're having the conversation. So the whole notion of the delivery systems have changed.
Mhm.
No longer have a classroom and I'm talking to you and I write everything down on paper or on a blackboard and then a green board with yellow chalk. We don't necessarily have to do that anymore. So anybody who is looking at the future has to be able to be flexible. Employers, I believe, are looking for people who are flexible and who are learning, who are lifelong learners. And the employers say, come into my shop, I'll teach you what you need to do.
Mhm.
You have to be dependable. You have to do it when you see you're going to do it. You have to complete the job. And you have to learn new ways of doing it. And you have to keep on doing it. That means you have to be flexible. And if anything happens to the employer, you have to be able to shift gears. You have to be able to pivot. You have to be able to move to something new and to something different, because that's the next step that you need to take you into the future. So no longer can we say, okay, I'm a chemist and I'm going to be a chemist for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
No, it's not going to work that way. So we have to have flexibility and we have to be able to pivot. And we have to be able to learn. But what we learn tomorrow may be not what we're going to learn today, because our needs change and our future changes and the needs of society. Like teachers nowadays need to be able to use the internet very well.
Exactly.
20 years ago didn't matter.
Yep. Yeah, we can't use that old excuse, I don't like the computer, I don't bother with the internet. It's the new,
Yeah.
it's our new world and you have to be a part of it or you're just gonna be left there hanging, trying to figure things out.
And you see, for instance, my daughter was teaching a
Mhm.
kindergarten class, and she says, "Mom, I'm into the school, and they want me to do kindergarten, okay, online." And I said, "Kindergarten online?"
Yes, how was
And
that possible?
a little time to figure out. But what was happening in her kindergarten class, which turned out to be really interesting,
Mhm.
is when she was teaching the kindergarten online, the kinders, they didn't have the navigation skills to navigate the internet.
Mhm.
Some were better than others, but most of them had their parents, one parent there,
Mhm.
screen, kind of listening in halfway to the class. And what they were beginning to find in those places where you do grade 1 or those early grade lessons with the parents still in the room to help the child navigate the electronic system,
Mhm.
children did so much better.
Okay. Yep.
Why? Parents were involved, not
Mhm.
directly involved,
Mhm.
but they weren't fooling around as much. Kids have energy. They don't
Mhm.
necessarily want to pay attention. And to look at a screen for a long time, they can't do that. So they do a little screen work, then a little desk work or tabletop work or whatever, then back to, so they were flipping up, but their parents were involved with them. So they were beginning to understand the system of how to use the internet and how to use the electronics.
Mhm.
Their parents were now more interested in helping in what they were doing. And then they had quiet time at their desk. So all in all, it was working much better. So who knows what schools are going to look like in the future.
Mhm.
But
Yep.
in those younger grades, you need to have the parents involved.
Yeah. And they're going to get an amazing education on technology. And when they're older, they're going to be able to be more self-sufficient.
Yes. And sometimes my granddaughter, she gives me tips and tricks on the internet too.
I usually ask someone younger myself.
Using time they're using it all the time, and it's helping them to navigate the system, and so
Mhm.
they can navigate it faster than we can.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. I used to be able to fix computers when I was like younger because I had my own company and for
Uh-huh.
about 10 years. So I'd have a Mac and I'd be able to go in and when it wasn't working and do things, but I've kind of left that world and, I'll ask for help when I need it, but I know a little bit better than, some, but
But it has changed
yeah,
so much.
yes, there's so many elements out there that you need to understand how to use. It's not one straight line.
Not anymore.
No, no. It's quite the unique world we're living in right now.
It is very unique, but again, we have to be able to pivot and we have to be flexible.
Yep, that's what I've been doing for the past year. And I'm still doing it. So
And
sorry, go ahead.
as I guess that's one thing I suspect that COVID might be teaching us, is that life as we knew it may be changing.
Yep.
We cannot say whether it's going to be changing for the better or changing for the worse. We don't know. We can't see the future.
Yeah.
We have to be adaptable because that's what evolution is all about. And as humans have evolved, I mean, there was a time when if you wanted to cook some food, you would go outside with a big axe and you chop some wood. Then you get a big, huge kettle and you put it on the fire outside. And then you put your food in there and you leave it cooking for half a day before you could eat it. We have evolved.
We have, absolutely.
You put it into this little box, you press start, ding, zzz, and a few minutes later, you have some food ready.
This is true.
Systems
Yeah.
change and evolve, and we have to evolve with them.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. So is there any other tips or advice you would give someone thinking about getting into, like, well, I guess it's just career advice, because it could be anything, not just like a teacher, because look at you started with science and biology and went into teaching from there. So
I think flexibility is one of the important things. We need to be flexible. We need to pivot. The other thing that I believe that employers would look for is team players. How do you work with others? And in working with others, it's not a selfish thing. It's not just, hey, I'm going to be in this for myself. It's how do we make the whole system productive? And if it's a system productive, whether we're working in a school, in a classroom, in a community, in a business, in an office, anywhere that we're working, we really have to think about the collective and having a collective vision and a collective desire to improve. And that comes down to our social skills, our ability to share with others, our ability to accept, I was going to say criticism, but maybe it's not necessarily criticism. Let's say accept evaluations from others. Because I might be doing something and I might, in all good intention, think I'm doing it right. And could say, hey, Pat, maybe if you do it this way, it might turn out better. If I were to say to them, oh, leave me alone, I know what I'm doing. That's not going to work towards building a team. But if you accept advice, you accept evaluations, you accept critique, and use it as a positive way of building without getting offended, without getting, hot under the collar and ranting or raving. So it's about our ability to have good social interactions.
I think the only thing that concerns me because of COVID, because most of our communication and our interaction is through Zoom and virtually and messages. So not being able to see the person face to face, to be able to see their eyes and really read the room and read them, that some of the intentions get lost, the good intentions. And that's the only thing that scares me.
That is true. That is true. But I believe that in the post-COVID world, we would have become so accustomed to now working on screen.
Yes.
And work. So we will have evolved ways of assessing those interactions.
Yeah, I agree.
So I think we will learn to move into the new reality. And I believe that once we learn the new environment, we can actually work with it to make it better and to make our team grow. Because, for instance, you work with a team.
Yes, and like this, every day is like this.
Exactly. And so for many of individuals, especially those with disabilities, who might, before COVID, be more reticent about going out. They may have mobility issues, for instance, so they don't get around as easily. Now, in this COVID environment, when working from home has become more possible.
Yes.
If those individuals with disabilities, they could be in their own home, they could be comfortable in their own home. They may need to learn some more on technology. They mean to get accustomed to some of these new tools. But once they get the world's their oyster, they don't need to be struggling with the public transit, or having the pickup from the friends to take them here or to take them there. They can now be at home. They can now apply and get careers in the field from their home, because I think the pandemic has opened up different types of opportunities. So they should accept those opportunities and pivot towards them.
I agree. And we're seeing that with PATH, with jobs, and especially those who identify as having a disability. We're able to find them work and find accommodations, and, you know, do some job carvings with some of the companies out there, because it is a different world out there right now. So it's actually not been bad. It's been very successful. So I'm hoping it continues and people find their way and find their path and find success, and, you know, whatever path they choose. So I would love to talk to you all day, Pat. Can we just stay on here all day and just talk? Anyway, I don't have any more questions. I don't know if there's anything else you want to share with
I'm
audience.
The one thing that I would say is, don't ever limit yourself. Opportunities will come a knocking, and be ready for opportunities when they present themselves. Don't limit yourself and say that I can't. If an opportunity presents itself, then take it, accept it.
I'm ready.
There. And when you accept that opportunity, accept it knowing that you might have to make a change, but then we know you're flexible.
That's right.
Accept it knowing that I have to learn some stuff, but you know you're a lifelong learner. Accept it, know that you might have to have some give and take, but you do that because you know that you're a generous person. So if you don't put limit on yourselves, then the sky is there and you're a kite. The wind will take you wherever you need to go.
I can't wait for my journey. I always feel like you're only talking to me and giving me advice. But it's amazing advice for everyone, though.
You're one of my universal doctors. So I that advice all the time and anytime, and to anyone else that's out there.
Well, thank you so much, Pat, for giving me some of your time and your advice and your wisdom. I always appreciate it and love speaking with you and seeing you in a different world now, but I love seeing you.
Yes, it's my pleasure. And this too will end, and then we'll move on, maybe in a slightly altered form, but we're going.
But we're going to pivot. Thank you so much, Pat.
You're very welcome, Catherine. Anytime.
Take care. Bye.